Crystal, testimony day. We're gonna elaborate more on the testimony. We just
Okay.
had the pleasure of rewatching it. For those who don't know, Crystal was baptized on Easter Sunday, as was I. How that went down and how that all came about is two very different stories. So we're gonna elaborate on both, share it with our fans, and give a more expanded view of the 3 minutes you got to share in a bathtub in front of a bunch of strangers.
Yeah,
Well,
that
friends.
that was weird to be sitting in that water in front of a room full of people in my clothes. And yeah, it's funny. It was
Um,
amazing.
so I think the first thing I want to ask, why Easter Sunday? How did you get to there? How did you get that date? How'd that come about?
Yeah, well, 2 weeks before Easter, we were in church on Sunday, and God told me that I was getting baptized on Easter. And I said, no, that's silly. That's embarrassing. I want to do it in the river. One, I always envisioned doing it in the river if I was going to do it. Um, and so I was sitting there and he just kept telling me audibly, no, you're getting baptized on Easter.
Not in the river, presumably.
No, in church and in the tub and whatever. So I was just laughing, okay, I guess I'm getting baptized. um, it was a pretty cool day actually, because then once I said yes to that, he also told me that I was going to invite a particular person. And to that, I also said no and laughed. I was like, that's ridiculous. No. He's like, yeah, you are. And then the sermon reflected all of that back to me. I mean, because prior to the sermon is already when he was telling me these things. And then the sermon in church that day was exactly on both of those. And so after the sermon, well, the band was playing, and then, of course, were they playing Gratitude?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's about, like, don't get shy,
Yeah, with the lion
let
out.
the lion out, right? I went up to Pastor Daniel and just said, hey, can I get baptized on Easter Sunday? And he was
Mid-song.
like, mid-song, nothing would make me happier. He was so excited and gave me a big hug. And it was pretty cool because,
I think he said he cried, for the record.
yeah.
Just throw Daniel under the bus.
I think, okay, well, to wrap that up was really cool because on Easter when I got baptized, Tom, who goes to the gym with us, and I see him in the mornings. I haven't seen him in quite some time, but he also goes to the same church. He said that he was sitting there and got an overwhelming message, pray for Crystal, before I had asked Daniel. And he just said he got this overwhelming sense, pray for Crystal, which he's like, that doesn't happen to me. That's never happened to me, whatever. And then so he started praying for me, and then he saw me walk up to Daniel and talk to Daniel. And then, that song wrapped up, and Daniel essentially went in front of the church and said, hey,
Yeah,
this is going to happen. And it was pretty cool.
that's cool. When you say God told you to do it, how did that come through?
I could just hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an actual audible speaking, like I'm speaking to you now.
Yeah. And a conversation. I was like, no, that's not happening. So that was really cool. And it was so, I can't even explain how clear it was.
Yeah.
There was no question because it's not something I wanted to do.
Right.
If I would have chosen my way of getting baptized, that's not what I would have chosen. And he was just very clear, no, you will be.
What would your way look like?
Definitely in the river. But I honestly don't know. If it was up to me and my way, I don't know if I would have done it because I would have had a lot of excuses not to, which are silly. So I don't know. I don't know what my way would have looked like. It definitely, if it would have happened, it would have happened in the river, though.
That's cool. What's special about Easter Sunday?
Well, that's so.
I mean, obvious, apart from the obvious.
The resurrection of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. The first time I had gone back to church, was Easter of last year. So I had heard God talking to me through like not in the way he clearly was talking to me that Sunday, but I had felt the tug for years to go back to church and to go back to God after like turning my back on him for a long time. Um, when I was 17, really. So 17 to, well, I guess I would have been 39 last Easter, but yeah, that was the day I finally like took the step to go back into church and see what God had for me. And so I think to be able to do it 1 year later on the same Easter Sunday
Had that
was
ever
his
crossed your
plan.
mind to do it exactly a year later?
No,
Like, at any point did you think that?
never once.
That's cool.
Not
That's
one single
interesting.
time. Like when he told me, I was like, no. Like it was not something I was thinking about. It was not on my mind. It was not on my radar. Nothing.
But you felt slightly compelled to just get up and get in that tub a couple of times during sermons.
Yeah, that's true. I did. There was maybe what once, maybe twice. Um, and I think both times all three of my girls weren't there, and I knew that I wanted them to all three be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something special that we do at our church, I don't know other churches, so I don't know how they do it, but I know some don't, is that part of the baptism is the testimony. And so that's reading out that testimony, a couple of minutes, trying to condense your entire life story into a couple of minutes and then read it in front of a bunch of
Yeah.
people. Walk us through your testimony, or at least
Hmm.
the main talking points. But I want you to elaborate on some of the main topics that were in there.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a lot of feeling hopeless and lost and unsure. Because this has been, the past couple years have been really, really difficult. And for me, it was finally getting to the point, and this took a while. Like it didn't happen the day I went into church. It took quite some time for me to actually say, like, okay, God, this is yours. I can't do this on my own. And the power in that moment of saying, okay, like I'm not just going to church because for a while I was then going to church, but hadn't necessarily come to the conclusion like, oh, this is all real. Like Jesus lived and died for me, for all of us.
But what, how were you reconciling that in between time when it sounds like you're in faith, but not quite believing the depth of what we now believe sort of
Yeah.
occurred for a fact rather than just a story.
I don't know. I don't know if I was really thinking about reconciling it or not consciously. Hmm. I think where I was at was I know I need to be here and I know God's talking to me.
Hmm.
And whether I actually believe the story to be true or not is not what matters right now. What matters is I'm open to hearing what he has to say. Um,
Which I think is, if people listening can hear that, that's so powerful because you don't have to be fully invested in everything that's in the Bible to go to church.
no, because I wasn't for a long time.
Just
Like,
open that door.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I had a lot of like, well, like I cannot believe that if a baby's born and not baptized, that baby goes to hell. Like that's not a God that I, you know, want to believe in. Or like there's just a lot of those little things, and I worked through some of those with a couple of the pastors at church and in really beautiful ways. But yeah, it was a quite some time before I was ready to be like, no, this is
Hmm.
truth, and I'm ready to accept that. And doesn't mean it was easy. I mean, it's not like I accepted it and then things were easy, but
No, typically
yeah.
not. What other key topics were in there?
I'm having a hard time thinking about it now. I mean, pull it up.
Yeah, read through it and
Yeah, I think a lot of what I wanted people to know was that like the beauty in God writing our story, whether we believe in him or not, and
yeah.
that like he's always there it is that prodigal son story that Daniel talked about at the sermon. Like, he's like, there was a really big part of me that didn't feel like I even, like, really deserved to be baptized because of going through a divorce, and that was just always gonna be something that he was disappointed in or judged me for, um, and so really, like, coming around to that's not how he works, that like, that's my stuff, but that's not his, and that's probably part of the reason that I never even really, like, wasn't sure if I would ever get really, like, take the plunge and get baptized because I thought it's just there's a lot of shame in that, um yeah, like, talking I guess this is just one little line, but I love the imagery of God chasing down the one sheep who keeps straying, falling down, and getting lost over and over again, because I am certainly that muddy sheep, so for me, I really wanted to communicate the fact that, like, it's okay not to be perfect, um, because I'm certainly not, but that, like, at least I've got him on my side.
Um, Talk to us about your prop.
My prop that you made fun of me for having. Aaron told me only nerds have props.
It probably says so.
Um, yeah, on Easter, that first Easter when I went to church with the girls, it was really cool because Daniel, it was a whole message of hope. And so he had all these people come up with these big cardboard sheets. And on one side were the things that they were essentially like ashamed of or had really struggled with. So like one was like meth addiction, like big things that people like it's brave to hold those up. All kinds of things. And then they kind of then like what happened when they accepted God into their life and they flipped it over and it was this beautiful like peace, like whatever it was that they had gotten from God. And so at the end of that service, they passed out all these little cardboards and you were able to write down what you were struggling with and put it in a big basket and then take a little piece of cardboard that said hope on it. And I ended up with a lot of those somehow. Probably the girls each had one. And so I have just kept them all year because I needed that hope. And yeah, it was nice to bring it back 1 year later. And that was my little prop.
But then it went further than that because you left the card on the bath, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I saw it up there. I was looking and I saw it up there. I was like, oh, she left her card. At the same time as I was up there, as you were getting baptized, I was standing next to the tub, and I looked over and I saw this guy in the front row, and he was crying, and I just thought, we don't know this guy. This is kind of powerful that this guy in the front row over here is crying. And then after it's all finished, we're sitting down. He walks up to the tub. He grabs that card. He walks it back to you and he says, you left this up there. And then he says, and I've still got mine. He pulls his out and it's all
Yeah.
raggedy, taggedy, like wrecked. He's got duct tape
Yeah.
on it because he's held it in his pocket for the whole 12 months. He
Mhm.
kept it in his pocket. So that thing was beat up.
Yeah.
And then he followed you into the tub.
Mhm.
How did that make you feel?
I thought it's just I don't know, I can't even explain that day other than it felt full of Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
It was amazing. It was like God is this is not me, this is God working through me in this moment to then work through all of these other people. It was so beautiful.
When did that kick in?
I don't think I consciously really thought about it at all that day. I just felt like I felt it. It was like warmth. Once I got changed because I was freezing cold. I was shivering so hard. But then the rest of that day, it was just like all warmth. It was such a beautiful day. And it was so amazing to see that. I think like this is exactly why Daniel says this is the way to get baptized. And we'll get into that with yours. But other people being witness to that, it gives everyone like the permission to then step in
Yeah.
to God's grace, right?
Yeah. And many did. Many did right there and then,
Yeah.
which is super, super powerful. Um, you said that you felt a lot of warmth for that day. Was there any heaviness, or has there been since it's been a week now?
Heaviness, no. Like I had other struggles this past week, but heaviness, no. Stress, yes. Heaviness, no. Like that whole day was like just love. That's all I felt on Sunday, that our baptism, Easter Sunday, was just pure love. It was beautiful.
And coming up out of that water, what did you hear
I
or
heard,
see?
yeah, this is kind of a crazy thing because I heard God very clearly say, it doesn't matter. Like that's what he said to me. It doesn't matter. Um, Very, very clearly. That's the first thing I heard. And it was wild because when we stayed for the next service, because you were getting baptized, Daniel said that so many times in the sermon, like that exact line. But I never heard him say it in the sermon of the service I was being baptized in. So he might have. I just wasn't paying attention, or was just my mind was elsewhere. Or I was kind of like logistically stressed out because I was just waiting waiting for Jake to tell me, and I was like, "Is this it? Is this?" I couldn't remember when he said to get in, but then in
It's
that,
almost like it doesn't matter.
yeah, almost. um, well, because Danny was like, "Don't get in unless two people are holding your hands." So I was like, "Well, I can't get in because there's not two people holding my hands." Um, yeah, it doesn't matter. Which, like, upon reflecting what I was just saying about maybe not feeling like worthy to be baptized, like it was just telling you like it doesn't matter. And the other crazy part of this is driving to church that Sunday morning, listening to music. That song came on that was like "Left It in the Water," and I was like, I really like this song. I never heard it before. I don't
It's
know
a
if
good
you'd
song.
heard it before. I'd never heard it before. And that was like the song playing on the way to church to be baptized, which was pretty cool. I've been listening to it like multiple times a day since then. But Daniel also said in the morning when he was kind of like running us through it all, he said, like, you leave your shame in this water. Like it stays in here when um so just there was a lot of really amazing things about that day because I don't know that he necessarily knew that I was feeling that shame anyways. But it was pretty cool. And then to hear God say it doesn't matter. Like
How else did you take that to mean when you heard it doesn't matter?
like well, it was big in the in like, oh, like I love you, you're my daughter. It doesn't matter. Like I'm just happy you're home. But it was also silly and logistical. Like, oh, I'm gonna be sitting here soaking wet and my hair is gonna be wet and I'm gonna hate it. And it's gonna be curly and I'm gonna hate it. And him telling me like it literally doesn't matter. Yeah. So it's big and little.
Big and little.
Yeah, it's all the things.
What about you? What about the journey leading up to there? Your journey with faith, how you got to get into the church on Easter Sunday.
Hmm. Like going way back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was raised in a Lutheran church and we went to church pretty much every Sunday. We were very involved and I did like, Sunday school and um communion class to do first communion. Like Lutheran is very similar to Catholicism and I think the main differences are just like, oh no, you can talk to God and there's no pope and stuff. But all of those like rituals I think are pretty similar. So communion and confirmation. And confirmation was maybe like 7th and 8th grade and it was a 2-year commitment. And it's essentially where you decide like if you want to proclaim like, yes, I don't know if it was I am Lutheran or I am Christian. I don't really remember, to be honest. I don't remember any religious teachings from growing up, considering I went every Sunday. I remember just having fun with my friends and like doing cool stuff, but I don't remember any of the religious teachings. So grew up in that, like helped in church services most Sundays, doing what they called an acolyte. So you'd be like lighting the candles or serving the communion. You wear this long white robe and you're up there and you do all the levels and it's a whole thing. Um, and then when I was in maybe 17, And by this point, I was not making great choices. I was definitely not making choices that honored myself, or my health or my well-being, as a lot of 17-year-olds do when they're in high school. But we got a new pastor at the church I went to, and just like a lot of some like weird infighting started happening, and um it ended up in them firing the youth pastor who I had grown up with and who I loved. Like when people talk about, I think we've talked about it in another episode, the importance of a youth pastor, like they may be one of the most important people in a church. And I just looked at the whole thing and thought, oh my gosh, this is all just people. Like none of this is real. This is just people. And in my 17-year-old brain, I like equated that with God not being real. And I remember walking into church, and it was not a church service. There was no one there. I sat in the back pew and I just cried and cried. And I just said, like, I'm done with this. None of this is real, and left. And that was that for a while. Like I just was done. And I would have told you, like, oh, I'm an atheist. We're born, we die. That's it. And then I had kind of a wild experience with my oldest daughter, Hayden's birth, that we talked about in the episode with Daniel. But for a few years prior to walking into church last year, I had heard God, like, or felt God, not heard him, but felt him, like, there's something here. Come back, come back, come back. And I um, was afraid to answer that call because of where my marriage was at for those years. And I had this strong sense that, like, if I answered that call, that would likely be it for my marriage. And so I really avoided that for years until I got to a point where I was like, I can't avoid this anymore. I'm going.
So before we get into that part, to go back a little bit, for anyone that hasn't heard the previous episodes, talk to us about that experience when Hayden was born.
Yeah. So Hayden was born at home and had a really severe meconium aspiration. So we went from home to Valley
Which
View.
means
Oh, so it's like meconium is their first poop, which is like really, really, really thick and sticky, like black tar.
glad I asked.
Yeah. And she breathed it in. So it like went and filled her lungs, which is really, really dangerous. And so she couldn't breathe. So we went from home to Valley View. At Valley View, they were nothing but horrible to us. And then from Valley View, she was flown to Children's Hospital in Denver. And that's a whole crazy story because I couldn't fly because I had just given birth. But I couldn't drive because I had just given birth. So she went on the airplane, and Paul and I drove home and like packed everything up super fast to then drive to the Children's Hospital to meet her. And so, like, you guys don't really know much about childbirth. Like, I had just given birth. And so yeah, I'm just like a mess, right? Like, I'm having contractions, like after pains, horrible contractions, like blood everywhere. I'm in the car. I'm like having to go to the bathroom in gas stations on my way to the hospital. But then, anyways, we met her there.
And that's your 4-hour drive we're talking about.
Yeah, in February.
Fine.
So
If you haven't driven the 70 in February, you
no,
can't quite appreciate.
And so we get there, and I'm calling on the phone while we're driving to check, like, is she there? How is she? Whatever. And the nurse on the phone was so mean. This is a whole other thing. And I think it's changing with home birth, but they were terrible. She says, well, she's not actively dying. Like, that was her answer to me when I asked how she was. So we get there. We're in the hospital with her. Like, they put her in actually a room for twins because she needed so much machinery that there wasn't like enough outlets and everything like that for just single. Anyways, so okay, we make it through all of that. She's healthy. We get home maybe 8 days later, which was a miracle in and of itself, because while we were in the NICU, not all babies make it out alive, right? So while we were in the NICU, I remember being up one night holding her and just hearing a family like weeping down the hall that their baby had died. And so like holding space for them. And anyways, it was just an incredible experience. So we get home from that, and Hayden just feels really, to me, like unsettled in her body. And I take her to this woman who supposedly did acupressure And I told this woman all of her birth story and how this is what I think is going on. She's like, feels just really agitated and she's not settling in her body and all these things. And the lady, Jess Jacobson is her name. She moved, but um, she said, no, that's not at all what's wrong. You had a miscarriage before this, and there's like a tug of who's supposed to be here and who's not supposed to be here. And so you just need to reassure her that no, she is supposed to be here. Like, this is her time. It's her term. She's supposed to be here. And it was just crazy because I didn't tell her. I had a miscarriage and I didn't tell her about that. I like spoon fed her everything. She could have been like, oh, yeah, this is this trauma and come back and pay me all this money and I can help you. And she's like, no, she's okay. You just need to tell her it's your turn to be here. And so that was really what took me from like saying, oh, I would have said I'm an atheist. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much more that we can't see. And that was kind of like a little bit of a door. I think God being like, you're not ready to fully walk in this door, but let me give you
It's
this
open.
little bit to admit, like, oh, there's just so much more than meets the eye because I had said nothing to Jess about having a miscarriage.
How's the atheism holding up when you're on that drive to Denver?
Oh, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't because that's all you can do is pray, and
Do you think that's where the door cracked open?
maybe, yeah, maybe,
I mean, prayer is a pretty powerful thing.
right? And so then February, 2 months before Easter that we went to church, I found myself back in the emergency room with Hayden, back on the same exact flight for life. Like crazy how it all happened. Same order of events, same everything. Um, Praying, like, and not even like fully admitting, like talking to God, praying of like, please save my baby.
This is in ketoacidosis,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. She was like dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was no more ignoring that for me. That's why Easter, I was like, there's just no more ignoring this. Like, I can't.
Pray to God.
Yeah. And then deny his
You
existence.
can. I did it for 40 years.
Yeah. I just, yeah. So she's again okay, type 1 diabetic. But there was just no more ignoring that call anymore.
Yeah.
So I went for it.
What was that space like going from that prayer to then going into church? How difficult was that first time?
Walking into church? Not not difficult at that point. I mean, it was difficult in the sense of I knew or I had the sense that it would be a pivotal moment in my marriage. And I put it to everyone in my house of like, this is something I want to do. Like, anyone is welcome. I would love to have you all here. So that was difficult in the sense that like my girls came, but my ex-husband's like, nope. And walking in, just nothing. It was beautiful. I sat there and cried the whole service.
You
But
got your hope ticket.
I got my hope ticket. And Daniel told me a really cool story about how. So I've known Daniel and Amy for a long time because their son is about the same age as Hayden. And so we would be at the library together when you're like have a 3-month-old baby and you don't have anything else to do. So you take them to like story time. Because what else are you going to do? It's not really for the baby. It's for, for you to just get out of the house and meet other people. So that's how I met them. And had a couple like little conversations. My grandmother died a couple years ago. And I had reached out to Daniel, like, there's some stuff I want to talk to you around this because of when my grandmother died, and that was before even thinking about walking into the church. Actually, this is so convoluted because the Easter before, so 2 Easters ago, I had told 2 friends of mine, Jenny Ayers and Laura from the gym, that I was thinking about going. And so they both like reached out and invited me. And I just was like, I can't do it. I can't, whatever.
They invited you to go on the Easter.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And like Jenny had brought me a book. So this has just been a years long process. Anyways, my grandma died and I was like, there's just like, she's in heaven. There's just like, she is. But I don't believe in God and I don't believe in heaven. But like my grandma's in heaven. So I was like feeling all these mixed up things and I wanted to talk to Danny about it. And I went so far as to email him He was like, "Yes, I would love to chat with you." And I never followed up, but, okay. So just to
You left him on red?
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All of that to say, I've
I mean,
known
you threw him
Daniel
under the bus
I
today,
know,
big time.
I thought that was not on purpose. I wasn't even thinking. Okay. So, I've known Daniel and Amy for years, and then came to church on Easter, but I went to the first service and Amy didn't come to the later service, and when I got up there and Daniel saw me, I could tell that he was, like, overjoyed to see me in there. Like, probably thought that I think had it in hindsight, I think they had been praying for me in that specifically, probably a lot of people too. But he told me months later when I saw him for counseling that Amy had said a prayer that morning driving by our house, not knowing that I was actually already at church, praying that we would come. And so that when she got there and Daniel had told her, like, you'll never guess who came to church today, she was like, are you kidding? Like, I had said this prayer driving by their house, right? Like, we live in a small town. So everyone just kind of knows where everyone lives, but it's pretty wild. And I think now, and I asked Amy this on Easter Sunday, I was like, is this something you guys have been working on for a while? And she said yes. And it was just really, really sweet.
Power of prayer.
Power of prayer. Yeah. And there's a long time where that would have really offended me. Like, I would like, don't pray for that for me. Like, I'm good. I don't need that, you know? But that's ego.
But she's not the only one that's prayed for you. That's been a
Mm-mm.
common theme in your story.
Yeah, my in-laws. Um, yeah, yeah, to the point where um my sister-in-law had said, like, we've been praying for this for you for so long. Um, and we just figured, Paul would come along easily because he grew up in this. And then I was like, shoot, we should have been praying for him. Which we all still are.
Um, the reason, well, not the reason, one of the reasons the testimony is so powerful is because people can relate, and hearing somebody boldly voice their weaknesses, their falling shorts, their struggles, gives them the courage to then step in because they can see, hang on, there is a way out of this. So share what you will about the marriage stuff, because that's the part of the testimony that people are going to be able to relate to
Mm.
and surely feel the same shame. What would you say to somebody in a similar situation?
Gosh, I feel like I'm just so in it still that I don't know that I have advice. It's just really hard. Like, I never thought I would be in this position. I was married when I was 22. I'm 40. So it's a long time. That's my entire adult life. And gosh, I don't even know what I would say other than like it's just really, really hard. And one thing I've prayed for, the only thing I've really prayed for throughout all of this was clarity and strength. God, please give me the clarity of what I need to do and the strength to do it. And, he really showed, every time I prayed that, I got the clarity that I asked for as hard as that was.
Yeah. So
Um,
you didn't give it easy.
no, no. And I'm still here. So clearly the strength to get through it. But, um, yeah, it was exhausting. It is exhausting. It's, you know, I, d- yeah, I don't have any advice or anything like that other than it's really hard and God is good and give us, he's the way maker. He'll make ways for us. And for me personally, every time I prayed for clarity and every time I prayed for strength and every time I prayed for like, how am I going to do this? He's showed me all of those things. So, I mean, I couldn't have asked for like, um, I don't know, like a more clear path that he's carving for me because he's carved a really, really clear path for me. And it's hard to reconcile because, like Daniel says, God's will is never brokenness, but we're broken people, and He will make beauty out of all of it. Um, yeah, and it's hard, but we can do hard things. Like, God doesn't call us to comfort.
What if somebody's listening? They've been through a divorce. They're feeling a weight of shame around that. They want to get into church, but that's holding them back.
Hmm. So the best advice that I've gotten is that feeling like that's the devil keeping you from God. And so I have to remind myself that. You guys have to remind me of that. And I have girlfriends who will remind me of that, which is amazing. Like, that's the devil. That's like, then he's winning because he's taking shame. Like, shame is not from God, right? Like, He is a loving Father who gives us grace. He wants us to be better and do better, but He does not want us to live in shame. And so that is the enemy picking taking your weakest point and using it to keep you from God. And so you just kind of have to make the choice of, like, is that what I want, or do I want to go to God? Um, like, we have our little saying of not today, Satan. And I used to tell myself that a lot, like, because like, for me, guilt is a huge um point where, like, he can get me. I can get really caught in guilt. And that keeps me from, like, all the beauty that's around me, showing up in ways that are, like, productive, because sitting around feeling guilty and shame is not it's not helping anything. Yeah, so I would say, like, don't let the devil win. That's what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Leverage
Yeah.
your weakness.
And unfortunately, he'll use people's weakness possibly, I don't know, but he'll also use other people's weakness of judgmentalism, like, whatever it is, to make that harder for you. And then you have to recognize, like, oh, that's not God either. That's people. God is perfect. People are not.
Definitely. Something that we all of us go back to quite a bit is, if I were the enemy, how would I attack me?
Yeah.
And I think that's good advice for anybody.
Hmm.
Um, if somebody is struggling to come in to hear this testimony, but they may still feel scared to come in that first time, which is interesting. It leads me to a point. We often talk about the comparisons of CrossFit and the church and the communities and how alike they can be, and the crossover that we see between the two. One of the ones that strikes me is that for both, for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, it takes every ounce of courage they have just to walk in the first time.
Yeah.
And that can be shattered quickly by somebody's poor behavior.
Hmm.
What experiences have you had with that?
Well, I didn't have any of those with CrossFit, but yeah, but when we first started this podcast, there was I think it started with one person, I don't know, who really was so upset about the fact that I would have the audacity to talk about God while being divorced, and made that very, very clear in a way that was really hurtful. Came after my child in that way, and that was pretty rough. It was hard to take in. I was so angry, but I was also, yeah, like, that's exactly where the devil knew to get me, of, like, oh, let me just shame you for this thing that, you know, it was pretty wild. I feel so fortunate that the church leadership showed up for us and really said, like, that's not okay. Like, we are not a church of perfect people. Um, yeah, that was rough and intense, and it was pretty wild because it happened the day we released the podcast too. So it was just immediate attack.
So
Hit
now
me in the
fast
middle of
forward a year in church. What 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 have been the biggest changes for you
the
individually?
gosh, that's, like, in relationship to faith or in life?
I mean, the life stuff, like whatever you
Yeah.
feel.
I mean, I think for me, my biggest changes it. Like, I've got God and Jesus, and I can feel that, and it's so nice and beautiful. Like, I think I said in my testimony, like, I just couldn't white knuckle my way through life anymore. I was exhausted and it wasn't working, and, well, I still have to remind myself not to do that pretty much daily. At least I can remind myself, I'm like, "No, I've got, like, God's got me, and that's everything." It's been pretty amazing in that way, and trusting, like, okay, that there's a plan for this. Like, beauty will come of this, whether I can see it right now or not, and beauty already has come of it. Like, this podcast wouldn't have happened. There's so many amazing, beautiful things that have happened as a
Yeah.
result of walking in that church.
But it hasn't been easy.
No, it's been the hardest year of my life. Year and a half, 2 year, whatever we're at now. No, like, there's been friendships lost, relationships lost, but there's also been really f for what's been lost, there's been so much more gained,
Mhm.
and so it's just beauty, and it's, like, rooted in faith and Christ and God, and, um, it's just amazing, and, like, there are just people where I know that, like, carry my mat, my little mat carrier. Or even just talking to a friend yesterday and telling her about, "Oh, I'm like, this is hard right now. This is challenging," right? And sort of like secular advice might be like, "Well, just let's sit down and have a glass of wine and
Yeah.
whatever," right? Like, that's more secular advice. She sat with me and just said, "Okay, like, this is what helps me in these moments is, like, stop, put your hands on your heart, talk to Jesus, take some deep breaths, and, like, just feel him and his presence wash over you, and that in those moments, that changes everything, and, like, how beautiful to hear that from a friend."
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a different environment.
Mhm.
Speak on that a
Yeah.
little bit. How has your social circles changed in the last 2 years?
Well, it's gotten a heck of a lot smaller, that's for sure. Um, I feel really lucky in the ways that I've, for the most part, always had really beautiful people in my life, and, still do, and, like, people who I want the best for and want the best for me, and so my circumstances, just my external circumstances have changed of going from homeschooling and being, like, a beautiful community of other moms who homeschool, and we hung out multiple times a week for hours and hours and hours, to putting my kids in school and now working full time. So it just logistically, a lot of those things have changed. But I know that a handful of those women are still, like, I love them and they love me, and we're still so supportive, even though I'm not physically with them anymore. But yeah, it's also gotten a lot smaller because, before like starting to walk the Christian path, just starting to walk the path of, like, self-improvement, self-discipline, not drinking, like getting criticized for not drinking, like that kind of stuff. You're like, well, I'm not going to hang out with you if you're going to lecture me while you're wasted. Like, what are you doing? Um, so it just kind of getting closer to this path really limited my social circle because of who I was willing to spend time with and take their energy in. And then starting the Christian path made it didn't make it smaller. That's not true, actually. It just changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did not make it smaller. It just changed who was in it. Yeah.
There's there's a saying that kind of goes with growth in general, but it kind of fits really well with that Christian walk is you're gonna become a better version of yourself, and as a result, your friends are gonna change
Yeah.
or your friends are gonna change,
Mm,
and that's kind of it.
that's true, right? On both of those things.
There's 2 ways that can happen.
Yeah.
They're either gonna change the way they act or their names are gonna change.
Yeah. Um, but it's been cool. I've had both. I've had both of those,
Yeah.
which is really cool because, yeah, like, and I guess this is where what I struggle with is, like, it's easy for me to let the negative take over the narrative, and that's just not true. Like, when I said about, say, my social circle got smaller, like, it didn't. It just shifted.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because again, when we dropped that first podcast that week, you were in it. Something the Holy Spirit said through me because it's way too wise for my own words. But the hyper focus on the one negative is not fair to
No.
all the positive feedback we were getting.
Yeah.
And I think that expands to life in general.
Yeah.
It's not fair on the amazing people you've met in the last 2 years to hyper focus on the one
No, it's not.
or the two or whatever. Like it's
not fair to them.
it's
It's not fair
humbling
to me.
it's humbling to remember that.
And I think that that's where I get my like crippling people pleaser, because it can be so hard for me to know like, oh, this one person's really mad at me. And yeah, to not stop and be like, oh my gosh, these like other people are so amazing and supportive. And the reason that person's mad at me actually has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I did do something actively mean, but I try really hard to be a good person in general and not hurt people.
What about, so you shared with me today something that I don't know that you're giving it the, what's the word? I don't know that you were giving it the applause that it needed, but 2 girls want to start coming to church because of seeing your testimony. Talk about that. Because that is why we do. That's why we
Yeah.
take a public bath and
Right.
public speak at
Yeah.
the same time.
So that was pretty cool. I mean, okay, to go back to one of the members of our gym after my baptism, he also decided to get baptized, which was amazing. And
Scotty,
with Scotty, it
shout
was
out to
not
Scotty,
like
big
he was
listener of the
not.
podcast.
Yeah, hi Scotty. Like that was not on his plan at all. But then because I had invited a handful of friends who have been good friends for a long time to come to my baptism on Easter Sunday, and they came and they brought my friend Kara brought her girls, and my friend Whitney brought her daughter. And Kara's oldest daughter, who like I was telling Aaron this today, but for the past 3 years has claimed to I don't has been Muslim. I don't want to say she's claimed to be, because she's like into it, and she's
She's a practicing Muslim.
She's fasted for Ramadan 3 years in a row. She's 14 now, so for an entire month, starting 3 years ago, she would not eat or drink anything from sunup to sundown. And she held herself to that. She didn't cheat. She didn't like nothing.
The discipline of a child to do that is hard to.
Yeah, 12, 13, 14. So starting at 12, 13, and 14.
I don't understand. I just don't think people can appreciate.
No, I can't do that.
The discipline of that.
Do you know how crabby I get if dinner gets late? Anyways, yeah, Kara had said to me like that she was so moved by it that she would like to start, attending church. And then same with my friend Whitney's daughter. It was just really like it really meant a lot to them to be a part of it. And regardless of where that goes or doesn't go, like that's God's doing and God's plan. I love both of those kids so much. Like, as much as it's possible to love kids who aren't your own, it's like the level right under that. So whatever God's plan is there is beautiful. And I'll be excited.
Could you have imagined that going in there that you would inspire 2 young teenage girls to want to start coming to church?
No, because it didn't even occur to me that this might inspire anyone. Like it just was like, this is my story. God's telling me to do it. I'm going to do it. Like I didn't think really at all about what it might inspire in someone else. I was just like, all right, God, here we go. So it's pretty, I guess it's beautiful to think about who it might have inspired. I mean, it inspired like 3 other people to get baptized.
Yeah. Plus, we can't measure the amount of people that were so moved that they will get baptized.
I mean, I got so many hugs. I got texts after that. It was beautiful. Like Leanne from the gym had invited a bunch of people from the gym to surprise me, which was really sweet. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what? Or if someone in 15 years is like, oh gosh, I don't know. That's God.
Yeah.
We'll see what. I just feel lucky to have been able to do it.
What's changed since?
Oh my gosh. I do feel so much more of a sense of like grace for myself throughout my whole divorce, like for being divorced. So like it truly, when he's like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, he doesn't care. Like I still feel a lot of guilt for my kid. Like like just wanting to give my kids like the most beautiful life that they can have. But for God, I'm like, no, like it doesn't matter. He loves me and he's so happy that I'm home.
And what do you think will change now moving forward?
Hmm.
How Let me ask it this way. How does your responsibility as a Christian change compared to 1 week ago?
This is funny. Okay. Because I started wearing a cross necklace last summer and I took that very seriously. Like, if I'm going to wear this as a public declaration of being a Christian, I need to like have my shit together, for lack of a better term. Like, if I'm going to publicly say this is who I am and what I'm doing, I need to like, uphold a certain standard. I almost think it's the opposite, where he's saying like, just like, I'm so happy you're here and you're home, and that's all I want. And so I think for me, I can still hold myself to certain standards, but I have to know like that's not what he's necessarily looking for. And so I need to give that grace to myself and to other people. Um, which I'm not saying like you shouldn't hold yourself to a standard. You always should, or that God doesn't, because he does. He does hold us to high standards. But that like carrying around the guilt and the shame of that is helping no one. It's not helping me. It's not helping my kids. Like, it's just not helping. So when Daniel said to us, like, this, you leave this in the water, I'm doing a disservice to God if I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. It's kind of cool. Um, what if one thing of your testimony could be remembered? What would you want that to be? One message.
Hmm. But like part of me wants to say is like you're not too broken. There's not a level of shame that God is going to be like, nope, not you. Which seems so silly because a divorce compared to things that other people like, that's not a, you know what I mean? There's like so many things that people would be like, "Are you kidding? Like, a divorce is nothing compared to what I've done," or whatever, but it was really shameful for me.
Yeah,
Um, and that, like, when you give it to God, like, oh, it's just so nice to not pretend like you're God anymore, like, he's there for us.
yeah,
He's writing your story. I think, like, he's writing your story regardless of whether you believe in him or not.
yeah.
So it's up to you, like, but when you believe in him, so we talked in the podcast with Daniel, like, life is hard either way, so you might as well have Jesus.
Carry the yoke.
Yeah.
I love it. My favorite question.
Okay.
Can you think now with Christ in your life? Can you think back to times in your life before the connection to Christ where God reached in, took control, and the hand of God played a part that at the time you weren't aware, but looking back now?
Yes, there's 2 that come to mind, and one is quite literally Jesus taking the wheel. Um, because I remember in high school, I went up okay, so there's this reservoir above Fort Collins, Horseshoe the Reservoir, and I drove up there with a friend of mine, and he was driving my car, and we were just, like, drove up to some, I think it was, like, a lake club, I don't even remember what we were doing up there, but we were just hanging out, and then driving down, and I don't honestly know how it happened, but I guess we're probably going around a corner and, like, started skidding off. And in my high school, there was, like, every couple years, always a couple of kids who died driving down from from the reservoir. And I just remember, like, we could not have come closer to going off the edge of the road, and just, like, him stopping the car, and just both of us sitting there like, "Holy cow, like, we should be dead right now. Like, how did this happen?" And I just, like, in hindsight, I'm like, "God, that was God being like, this is not your time. Like it was just, I don't know. That was a miracle. That was God, 100% God being like, nope, this is not what's
No,
happening
yeah,
for you guys today. And at the time, not calling it God, but definitely being like, oh, we had guardian angels for sure, because there's no reason that we wouldn't have just flown off the road, and that would have been that. And that was like before cell phones, like no one would have known where we were. Been awful. So there was that time. And then there's this one other time that I specifically remember, um, walking home from the bars when I was in college. And this guy pulling over and being like, hey, I'll give you a ride home. And I was like, no, I'm good. I can walk. Like, don't worry about it. And he's like, no, I'm giving you a ride home. I'm like, no, I'm good. And him, like, get in the car. And got in the car because I was like, what what am I gonna do? Um and like knowing like he's obviously not taking me home. Like I don't know how, like this is not gonna end well, and just being terrified. And then for whatever reason, this guy like had to stop and get gas. So we stopped at a gas station because I was alone. Like this was the middle of the night and I was like, there's no one on the street. There's no like, probably should have just like screamed or something. But then he stopped to get gas. And while he was getting gas, like just booked it into the gas station and basically was just like, you have to help me. Like this, I don't know. This guy's like I don't know what's happening and I need help. And so, like, for whatever reason, that God is like, this guy's going to stop and get gas while he has you in his car. I just think like that had to have been God too. Cause there's no way that story ended well
no,
without God. Yeah. And it just like, he was like, you're just not done yet. You've got work to do. Um,
that wasn't part of the story I was weaving for you.
yeah. But in that situation, I'm like, I was in that car, like, well, I'm dead. Like, this isn't going to end in any other way. And it's like weird for someone to get someone off the street and do that and then stop to get gas. I don't know. So the whole thing, I was like that. In hindsight, I'm like, that was God. Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of cool.
Hmm. Yeah. Those are like there's probably so many, all kinds of little ones of like, I mean, I was up to all kinds of no good rascal stuff when I was young.
But what about with Hayden?
Um, oh, for sure. Hayden was like, yeah, God's like, no, she's not done yet. You two aren't done yet. Yeah, because the two flight for lives and one 12-year-old kid is for two completely unrelated situations. Yeah, God was like, we're not done here. Well, and just kind of what that woman just said, like, you're supposed to be here. Like, just reassure her, like, she is supposed to be here right now.
Love that.
And she is supposed to be here right now. Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay.
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks. And well, I guess I do want to say that was probably one of the most special days of my life. And I'm so thankful that I got to share it with you. Christian's here. I got to share it with Christian and my girls. And like, I don't think I'll ever have words to say like what a beautiful day that was.
Yeah, I don't know. In fact, I do know. I do know. Like, unless you've experienced that, you won't understand the power of what that feels like.
Yeah.
There's just no way to comprehend that as a human. Just
No, because
how
it's not
powerful
human.
it is. It's
It's
just,
God.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's supernatural.
Hmm.
There's a power to it, and yeah, there's only experience is the only way
Yeah.
to fathom that.
And he was so happy. Like, I just know he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Cool.
thank you.
Like and subscribe.